Lately, I've been seeing a trend again of people on TikTok or social media saying gamers are red flags. If your boyfriend is a gamer, he is a red flag, you should run away. And of course, the comments get filled with a bunch of people agreeing with that, and a bunch of people who are saying, oh, well, God forbid that this person has a hobby, right? So, is gaming a red flag, and are there red flags you should look at? Let's talk about it today. Now, first, I'd like to point out, obviously, that a red flag of a person can join any hobby, right? A red flag, a bad person, a problematic person can be a gamer, they can be a person who knits, they can be a person who goes jogging, they can be a person who goes kayaking, they can be a rock climber, they can exist in any hobby. But I do think it is undeniable that gaming as a whole tends to have a lot more problems, or at least vocal problematic community than a lot of other places. There's a reason why, quote, gamers have a reputation. Just some examples off the top of my head, the gamers who were complaining that the new God of War game, the female lead, isn't hot enough for them. Or when Horizon Zero Dawn was first announced, they were zooming in on Aloy's face and saw that she had a little bit of hair on her face, and they were screaming it's unplayable and unrealistic because this female has hair on her, and that is completely unacceptable. And finally, I'd like to say that if you find yourself on any of these things I'm going to talk about, if I call you a red flag, even on accident, that isn't a chance for you to come and flame me, though I guess you're welcome to in the comments, but rather a chance for introspective. If other people are calling your behaviors unacceptable and a red flag, the appropriate response isn't to just immediately go and defend yourself and get upset, but maybe have a little bit introspective and say, maybe I am doing something wrong. So, with all of that out of the way, let's talk about some red flags in gaming. Number one is kind of a two-parter. If you have ever destroyed a controller because you've lost a game, or thrown a controller because you've lost a game, or if your mood depends on you winning a game. If you've ever had a situation, or if your boyfriend or girlfriend or whoever we're talking about has had a situation where it's like, oh, they lost a match of League of Legends, so now it's going to be a bad day, or I'm going to have to walk on eggshells all day, or if they put a hole in the drywall, or they throw a controller because they get so upset at the game, that is a red flag. That is an emotionally immature person who does not know how to process their feelings and probably should not be playing video games until they get into some therapy. There is absolutely no reason that you should throw a controller out of frustration. That simply should not happen. Now, I've broken some controllers, I will fully admit that, but that was from me dropping them because I have butterfingers, or I put them up on a shelf and then it fell down and it broke because of my irresponsibility with that. But I have never once felt like throwing a controller because I got so frustrated at a game. If that is something that a person in your life is doing, that is definitely a red flag. If gaming is the person's only hobby, that is the brightest of red flags. There's nothing wrong with gaming. That's kind of the whole point of the videos. That's not the gaming itself, but there are behaviors in it within itself that are problematic. But if a person has no other hobby other than gaming, that's a red flag. If they have one other hobby and that other hobby is anime, that is an even bigger red flag. There's nothing wrong with getting off from work and wanting to unwind by playing a video game for an hour or two. But when every single night has to be video games, when every single weekend has to be video games, when you're not going out and doing anything because it has to be video games, I can guarantee that if you ever are in a relationship with that person, that is going to be your life. They are never going to want to go anywhere. They're never going to want to do anything. It'll always be video games, video games, video games. Any moment spent awake, they're going to be wishing that they played video games. That is why it's a red flag. A person needs other hobbies in their life. They need balance. They need to go out for hikes. They need to go out and do, I don't care, go vintage shopping, walk around and look at museums, go out to parks. Something other than video games and anime needs to exist for proper balance in your life. And I can say this as experience, firsthand experience. There was a time where I was too deep in League of Legends, where all I did was go to work all day, come home and play League of Legends all day. That is all I did, was from sun up to sundown. If I wasn't at work, I was playing League of Legends and trying to get the highest score, the highest rank in League of Legends. I've lived it, that's why I can say it. Thank goodness I've changed. Thank God that I have seen the light and changed that. And that is why, again, I'm saying don't just come in the comments and flame me, but if you realize, hey, that is all I do is watch anime and play video games, there is more to life and you need to get out and do something more. I know that people hate the touch grass, and for the longest time I hated saying go touch grass, but we've reached a point where it's just the truth. You need something else in your life other than video games and anime. This next red flag is a little bit hard to describe, so I want to make sure that I accurately depict it. If you were to go up to your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whoever it is, and ask them, how would you feel if companies banned more people for saying inappropriate things? If they in any way, shape, or form defend saying, well, I have a right to scream the N-word at people on Call of Duty, I have a right to call them slurs in Call of Duty, that's just part of the game, that is a red flag. That is a massive red flag. This person is trying to defend using slurs and abusing people verbally and saying they have a right to it because that's just a part of Call of Duty. Spoiler alert, it's not a part of Call of Duty. It is a part of a toxic and horrible, horrible community that has grown and grown and grown. That doesn't make it right. That is a red flag. Hours played can be another huge red flag. And again, this one's difficult to exactly say, so I want to make sure that I'm accurate. There are games out there like Skyrim that have been out for a very, very, very long time that people have modded to basically be entirely different games. So if someone has a lot of hours in that, well, that makes sense. They've been playing the game for 10, 15 years now? It came out in 2011, so 15, 16 years of Skyrim? Yeah, you're going to rack up a few hours in that. Games like Roblox, which you should never play, but Roblox, that have multiple different games within them, well, it certainly makes sense that you would have a lot more hours in a game that is 50 games in one than one that is just one game. But if you take the average hour played per day and you're getting into 8, 10, 12, 15 hours a day, that's a red flag. When Arc Raiders first came out, there were quite a few people after a month that were bragging and talking about having between 18 and 20 hours a day in the game for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, all the way up to a month. If you're able to invest 20 hours a day into a video game for an entire month, you are without a doubt neglecting other things in your life, and that is a giant red flag. And that's not unique to gaming, right? That's true for anything. Like, this is a religious channel. I talk about religion often, so let me use that as an example. If I were to say I spend 20 hours a day in church for an entire month, that's a problem. That's a red flag, right? That means I'm neglecting other things in my life. If I'm at church 20 hours a day, well, I'm obviously not working and bringing money to provide for my family. I'm not spending time with my wife. There are huge problems with that. So it's not that it's just video gaming in general. It just, again, it tends to be gamers who tend to overdo it because of escapism or other problems that cause them to spend 20 hours a day in video games. This is just pointing out that that is a problem and something that you should A, either look at and fix, or B, if you're dating someone, understand that that's a red flag and they are showing you who they are in that moment. If someone is spending 20 hours a day on video games, you're not going to get prioritized in that relationship. I think also kind of satellite to that point is if you spend too much time in the communities. Helldivers is a perfect example of this. Since we're playing Helldivers in the background, let's talk about Helldivers, right? You might not spend all your time in the video game, but if you join the communities and spend your time in the fan communities and outside and parallel to the communities, you'll run into the worst people imaginable if you spend any time in a fandom. And that's, again, not specific to gaming. Spend any time in the My Hero Academia fandom, the My Little Pony fandom, even the Bluey fandom. You'll see the most toxic, horrible people. And it just has to be that if you spend too much time in that fandom, if you're way too into one thing, you get obsessive and it turns into a thing that is a red flag. You're spending way too much time on something that doesn't matter when you should be working on yourself, doing other things. Again, not specific to video games, but does tend to happen to video gamers a lot more. Waifu culture. Huge red flag. Again, probably more prominent in anime, but it's huge with like gacha gaming and certain gamer girls and things like that. If a guy is in a relationship with you and he has a waifu, an obsession over a video game girl or a special affinity for a girl in a video game, that's a red flag. That is a problem. Nobody should care that much about a video game character that they become a waifu, that they get statues of them, that they think about what they think or feel or what they would do. It becomes an obsession, and a very problematic obsession very quickly, especially if you're in a relationship to start with. The final red flag I'm going to talk about today is going to be holding a mirror up to myself, and a little bit ironic maybe. We're going to talk about content creators and streamers. Now, I encourage most people to be content creators and streamers. Chase your dream, do your things, but it is like everything else. If you take it too seriously, go all in on it, it can become a problematic red flag. The just truth of it is the vast majority of all of us are never going to make it to the levels of Twitch fandom, Twitch stream, whatever you want to call it, that we're ever going to make a living off of it. But there's no problem with streaming and having some fun with friends. There's no problem with streaming to a few small, close friends, whatever it may be. But when it turns into, I'm going to quit my job to be a full-time streamer, if you don't have the money and income and solidity to already back that up, that can be a real red flag. When people who are making maybe $10, $20 a month say, you know what, I'm just going to focus on this full-time. I'm going to quit my full-time job. I'm just going to focus on this dream. That's a red flag. And the biggest danger of it is if they're one of the people that had the red flag earlier, we're talking about where gaming is all they do, that is their only hobby. If they turn it into their full-time job, well, then they're going to have no hobby, right? That's just going to be their work. They're going to have no outlets for their frustrations, for their depressions, for their other things. That's not going to be escapism for them anymore. And that's going to raise up so many problems. So again, just wanting to stream, not a problem, but someone who thinks that I'm going to go full-time, I'm going to make it, I'm going to be a full-time content creator, and puts your relationship, their dynamic, their money, their well-being in danger for that to chase it, that can be a huge red flag to watch out for. So obviously, there's a lot of red flags in gaming, and I do stand by my initial point that gaming itself isn't necessarily a red flag, but there are a lot of red flags in gaming, and you should know about them because you should be aware of them. There are a lot of maladjusted gamers. There are a lot of people who need therapy, who need help, who need to step away from video games and go touch grass per se, and this video was created to talk about some of those red flags. If you see those in yourself or your partner, again, rather than getting upset at me for calling you out, it's a chance for introspective and say, wait a minute, is this how I want to live my life? Is this a problem? If other people see it as a problem, is it something that I should change? As always, thank you for watching and have a blessed day.